podcast. We're your hosts, Abby
and Leighton, and this is now season 2, episode 2.
Woo!
Filmed approximately 2 minutes after episode 1.
I had time to go to the bathroom, and now we're back.
Yeah, we're back. We're ready. We had a 48-minute practice run before this.
That was a little bit longer episode than I was planning, and so we're gonna try our best to make this episode not painful. But we are going to be giving our theories, thoughts, and prep for Onyx Storm, which is coming out in a few weeks. When this episode releases, it'll be like a few days before Onyx Storm releases.
Mm-hmm.
So,
correct.
But these are all of our theories. Both of us have done a reread recently of Iron Flame and Fourth Wing. Forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
Do we want to do an intro of some sort, or do we want to just jump right into it?
You did mention potentially reading the Onyx Storm blurb,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Okay, we're just going to jump right into it then. But before we do that, know this is spoilers for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. And also know that we will be making theories and guesses of things that we think might happen in Onyx Storm. So, not that I'm going to say that any of these are going to be correct at all, but in case we are, this is just your warning. If you don't want to hear it, don't listen. So,
as well as, yes, the blurb from Onyx Storm will be read, as well as Rebecca Yarros has released a couple quotes and or blurbs from Onyx Storm that I will probably mention at 1.2.
Yes.
So we'll let you know if we're going to say one of those, but...
Yeah, this is just, know that there are spoilers and we will not be able to hold ourselves back. So,
yeah.
If you have not read both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, I suggest go away, come back when you read them.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna start with reading the blurb from Onyx Storm. So, let me find where it starts. Okay. After nearly 18 months at Basgiath War College, Violet Sorrengail knows there's no more time for lessons, no more time for uncertainty. Because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it's impossible to know who to trust. Now Violet must journey beyond the failing Arishian wards to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navarre. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these words, by the way. The trip will test every bit of her wit, luck, and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves, her dragons, her family, her home, and him. Even if it means keeping a secret so big it could destroy everything. They need an army, they need power, they need magic, and they need the one thing only Violet can find, the truth. But a storm is coming, and not everyone can survive its wrath. And that's it.
Wait, I feel like I just got chills.
Oh, guys, I'm so excited. And I literally don't even know where to begin because there's so much to unpack and so many thoughts that I have for Onyx Storm. Because honestly, when I was doing my reread of Iron Flame in preparation for this episode, I truly, I have a lot of thoughts and ideas of where it could maybe be going. But I really don't have any idea where, Onyx Storm is going and really where the whole series is going at all, I feel like.
Oh, I 100% agree. I will, actually, you know where we're going to start? Because I just want to put this out there as this is actually my worst fear happening if this does happen. I fear we're going to have a new moon on our hands.
I don't know. I've never read Twilight. I don't know what that means.
For those of you that have read Twilight, you know what I mean. But for New Moon, that's when Edward goes away for the entire book, and it's just the Jacob and Bella book. Because Edward's like, I need to protect you. I need to keep my distance.
Yeah.
And so help me if Xaden does that and leaves Violet and we get a Dane and Violet book.
No, I don't think that at all. I don't think that there'll be any sort of romance with Dane at all.
Well, I don't think it would be very romantic because honestly, I think Dane is he's too far behind to catch up. He's not. I truly think that Violet and Xaden are endgame. Even 3 books from now, they're going to be endgame anyways. Same. However, it would be a good opportunity for Violet and Dane to build back the friendship that they once had. But I still don't want to see it because...
Well, here's my thing. Have you seen the theories about who her ex might be?
Oh my gosh, I've seen one theory, and I'm on board.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's a theory circulating that her ex... is Halden, who is Eric's brother. Halden is the next in line to be king of Navarre, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, and everyone is suspecting that he is her ex, and I think that definitely could happen because there were multiple times in Iron Flame where Eric makes comments about how well he knows Violet and like how
Yeah.
much time he really spent with her. And I'm like, okay, I feel like that's very telling that like obviously they've been around each other, they know each other a lot, and it seems like more just like on a personal level. And I'm like, okay. And I also think too there are multiple times in Iron Flame where Xaden makes it very clear he's like, I don't want to know about your exes, I don't care. And I'm like, so obviously we're gonna find out about the exes eventually.
And I will say that is the basis of like half my theories.
Really?
Is I think Rebecca Yarros very intentionally will throw like one-liners in there
Yes.
just so that it's brought up
Mm-hmm.
to the point that when it comes back around, you're not blindsided like, oh, we've never seen this before.
Yes.
So half my theories, I'm like, in this one line,
Yes.
she did say
No, I
this.
have noticed that a lot with her writing. So I feel like there are so many directions that I feel like Onyx Storm could go specifically. But one of the things that I feel like we obviously have the Venom,
Yes.
which are obviously like the big villains. But but she has said this is a 5-book series. One, I'm like, where are we going with the Venom that it's gonna last another 3 books? And also, we haven't really clarified who the other villains are. I mean, we have Melgren, and it's insinuated that the king is a villain. Like, it's insinuated that they're the villains, but they
Mhm.
haven't done enough villainous things, I feel like, for that to be, like, a very distinct, clear, like, they are the villain that are fighting against us. And so, like, there's some things, but I think that in Onyx Storm, we'll start to see, my thought is that I think we'll start to see their villain side come in more, and I think that the blurb kind of shows that as well, where it's, like, people are coming in at them from outside their borders and within. I think that's going to be kind of within. And I think that's where Halden will kind of come into play. Because the king has to come into play at some point and become the villain of something.
Yeah, because you even have, like, Dane's dad, whatever, Atos. And I never got the impression that he was, like, a villain.
Yeah.
Just that he was a really bad guy. And
Yes.
more was self-interested than he was actively trying to, be the villain / bad guy.
It kind of almost seemed like Atos was doing a lot of things to get to where Lilith Sorengale's role was. Like, it almost seemed like he was trying to do things to get to be the general and not necessarily, like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things to go along with that. But my thought is that I think we'll start to see a more clear picture of, like, more villains. And specifically with Melgren and the king, which I think could then in turn with Halden coming into play.
And I think specifically with that too, just within the Venom, we don't know a lot of the structure of the Venom.
We know a little.
Like, we do know a little bit, and we know the Sage is the big bad of the Venom, but we don't know much outside of that. There's the Sage, then there's the General. And then there's, like...
No, the generals... Wait, hold on, let me find it. I have it written down somewhere. Oh, never mind, I can't find it. But there was, like, 3 levels. It was, like, basically... But it was basically, like, the student, the teacher, and the general was, like... And there were specific names for them.
But isn't the Sage the very top of the Venom structure?
Sage was, like, the teacher. And then I think it was Maven was the highest general.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I personally would like to see a lot more exploring what that structure looks like.
Getting a more inside look of it, for sure.
Yeah, because we don't know tons about them or how they work. We obviously know where their power comes from and that there's that general structure, but we don't know why they really do the things that they do.
Or what their goal is.
Yeah, besides, right now, it's framed in a sense that their goal is just,
destruction,
collect power, become powerful, drain power, but there's got to be a why to why they're even doing any of this.
Oh, no, I agree. And so I think that will kind of be more clear, and I think with Xaden being Venom at this point, I think that'll start to open up that concept as well. I also have a hot take, is that I think a huge part of Onyx Storm also will be her trying to find a cure for Venom, obviously because she's trying to save him, Xaden. But I think she might find the cure, but I think she's gonna fail, and I think he'll end up being full Venom by the end of the book.
This kind of goes into my first theory. We said we both kind of have general umbrella topics and multiple theories under these.
Yes.
But a very popular fan theory is that Violet is Venom of some sort.
Violet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Violet is
Yes.
venom of some sort, or like
Venom or something.
Lilith was attacked when she was pregnant and she got touched by a
Yeah,
that whole thing. I'm of the belief that I think Violet's dad was Venom.
Yes.
And obviously he was inside the wards,
Mhm.
right? Whatever. I think Violet was conceived while he was Venom, so
Mhm.
she's going to be the first born
Yes.
Venom instead of everybody else is created by taking power.
Yes.
And so then she will therefore be the key to the cure.
Yeah.
Obviously, Indarna is going to be the key as well, because we can't ignore the fact that she waited 600 years specifically for Violet, and she's...
Well, and they talk about it too, where they're like, her dad was doing research on Feathertails. This was
Yes.
mentioned in Fourth Wing, and then again in Iron Flame, and it's a coincidence. And it was like, was it though? I think they literally say that in Iron Flame. And so then I'm like, okay, well, Andarna's a Feathertail, so I feel like there has to be a reason. Like, I feel like the Feathertail aspect has to play a role into whatever the cure for Venom is.
Oh, 100%. And
Yeah.
I think... I don't know even how to phrase this, because I don't think there's going to be a cure for Venom necessarily. Like, you take this liquid and you're no longer Venom anymore. I think it's going to be more complex than that. Maybe Venom aren't going to be exactly what we think they are, and maybe being Venom and... How do I phrase this? It's not mutually exclusive. It's
Mhm.
not like you're Venom or you're not Venom.
Yes.
Like, there's going to be some gray area and in
Mhm.
between. So it's not going to be as clear as, you're cured. I think
Yes.
there's a chance that Xaden remains somewhat Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a way that, Violet can be like a counterpart to him. And that's how it concludes, rather than...
Mm-hmm. Well, here was my thought. I also had this thought, though, too, kind of going back to thinking that her dad is Venom.
Mhm.
There is at the end, right after Lilith dies in Iron Flame, right before she dies, one of the two, one of those two chapters, the chapter heading, the quote from something, was a letter from Nolan written to Lilith, who Nolan is the doctor, mender, there we go. And it says, "We have tried every method we know of, as you requested. There is no cure, there is only control." And I remember when I first read this, I always just thought that maybe, she then knew about Jack, and she was discussing Jack. But I had this thought, literally on my drive here, where I was like, but we don't know when that letter was written.
No.
What if it was written years before? What if it was written so long ago, when maybe her husband started showing signs of being a Venom? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no gauge of knowing when that letter was.
No, I 100% agree. And I recently just saw that letterhead again and was thinking the same thing. I've seen people say, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because they believe that if it was about her husband, that she would already know it, so she wouldn't have to request information.
Well, she didn't know. She was trying to see if there was a cure for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were saying, like, if they were experimenting on her husband or something like that. Yeah. And maybe it wasn't so direct as, like, the experimenting was happening on her husband.
Don't think
maybe
so,
she was just more curious.
Yes.
But I had the same exact thought.
Yeah.
But
well, my thought is, though, too, is that I think that... Because, again, obviously, within the blurb and stuff, too, it just sounds like I think a huge part of Onyx Storm is going to be Violet basically being sent on these quests and trying to solve these mysteries, and also trying to, gain this power, within their army and stuff like that. But Lilith says it right before she dies, where she's like, and they say this multiple times, which is a huge telltale sign when an author is writing, that if something is repeated multiple times, there's either one of two things. Either one, they're trying to briefly foreshadow something to happen, because like you said, you don't want it to be like a total where did that come from moment. Yeah. You want it to be there, or you're trying to shove something down someone's throat, so that
reinforce
reinforce it so that you can flip it on its head later and everyone's shocked. That's how you do plot twists.
Yeah.
And one thing that I felt like they kept reiterating in a very one sentence way was that her dad gave her everything she needed. And I was like, interesting. And then there was a line where Violet says she got all of her books back. And she was like, I was shocked to find that all my books were still in their crates here in Basgaiath, and I was able to get them back. And she goes,
oh yeah.
and she makes a comment where she's like, I guess my mom was more sentimental than I thought. And I was like, we know Lilith. She's not. She's not sentimental, actually, at all. And she's very strategic with everything she does. And I think that a huge part of Onyx Storm is that I think her parents did either find a cure or know there's more information than we have about the venom, or something that's important that relies around the venom being cured or something like that. And her dad knew it. And I think that her dad has left clues, essentially, for Violet to find, similar to how he left a letter in the Fable book. I feel like he was already always planning for something like this to happen, because he wrote that letter and left it in the Fable book that she had to find. And I also feel like, and what was the other line? There was something else too that kind of, he has an office that no one knows where it is except for Violet. It was briefly mentioned in Fourth Wing too. So I just think that there's going to be some clues from her dad that she's going to have to go through and find. Well, it's kind of my thought.
Okay, stick with me, because these ideas are hitting my head at this very moment.
No, it's okay.
But it would make sense, because perhaps they knew about the venom prior to him becoming venom, or something like that.
There's a lot of lines throughout the books that kind of hint at that.
Do we think that they could have purposefully conceived Violet because they knew that somebody who was a born venom could potentially be the cure to the venom, and maybe it was too late for him, and that's why he was so passionate too about training her as a scribe and things, and giving her all the tools, because he thought, oh, maybe I'm not gonna be here, which maybe that's a stretch, because he did live until she was into her teens, right?
Yeah.
But then she would have all the tools.
Yes.
I
100%. Well, because if you think about it, now this is literally not any of my thoughts at all, but now that you're saying it, it's kind of pulling it out of, venom is basically death. Like you said, like venom have to be created; they're not born. In my head, that kind of makes sense. Like I don't think that that's ever really clarified, but that kind of makes sense, because venom are death. Like they basically just bring in death. Essentially, they dry everything up, they kill everything. There's no way that life can be born through venom. So Violet's basically the like you said, like basically the anomaly, or the life aspect of venom and things like that. So it would make sense that she would somehow be like a cure to it almost, because she has, like you said, it has both, and she has life outside of venom, which is all just death.
I 100% agree, because I guess the question from there is, do we think venom procreate with each other? Which I think the answer is no. I never got the impression that was a thing.
Yes.
So it would make sense that Violet would be the only one. And on top of this, I know a lot of people probably have already heard these things, but like to further that theory, obviously we know her mom got sick during pregnancy, which would make sense, because maybe Violet was siphoning power directly from her mom. And then also we have her silver-tipped hair, which people know about. Her lightning / power manifests as blue as well, and the wyvern breathed blue fire. She also bonded 2 dragons, which has never happened before, obviously.
Yeah.
And we know that venom riders have several wyverns with them, so it would just be kind of another hint that, she's half venom. She has the ability to bond multiple dragons on top of that.
And that is interesting. I didn't think about that aspect.
Which nobody brings up, that may be me just like picking at the weeds to be like, maybe. Also, we get at the very beginning of Fourth Wing, her mom says when her and Mira are arguing about her going into the Riders Quadrant, that Violet tested for the highest in like speed and agility, which I always was like, is
oh my gosh,
she not so weak? Like what are we talking about, right?
Sorry, that just feeds right that we'll talk about later about Violet's second signet. But yeah, keep going with this train of thought.
I totally know what page you're on. But also, she tested first in speed and agility. However, we are constantly reinforced, shoved down our throat. She is so weak. And I'm like, I got the impression that, like, she probably wouldn't be the fastest or whatever, just because, like, running's hard on your knees.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which she talks about at the beginning of Iron Flame. She starts running every morning.
Yeah, because it's hard for her, but she's so fast. And so, I just think of this scene when, at the end of Fourth Wing, when she's fighting the Venom on Terran's back, and she's like, oh my gosh, they're so fast, and they're so, like, are you fast and agile? Is it because you're half Venom that we're getting this as well?
Yes. Well, and I want to make this point too. So, because one of the other things, like I said, I think a huge part of Onyx Storm will be obviously her trying to find a cure. I think that's kind of like established in my head at least, because she has Xaden and that's an issue. And the second part is gaining allies, which is the second part of that brief. And there is one thing that was repeated so many flippin' times in Iron Flame, and it was the freaking Isles. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Isles?
The Isles were mentioned like 5 times in Iron Flame of they are these islands that Navarians are not allowed to travel to, they have cut ties with, and no one is allowed to travel or cross their borders.
Yeah.
And it's not on the map. And I said, oh, so that means we're going there next book is kind of what I'm understanding.
Location.
And so that was kind of like my other like thing. I think those will kind of go in tandem together, and I think that and again, I don't know what the Isles will basically showcase or do necessarily, but I think that's going to be a huge part of it. Is like she's going to be trying to get these Isle allies. Essentially, it's kind of my main thought. But also, you also mentioned too, like the Venom, like all the similarities between Violet and the Venom. The one thing that stood out to me about in Iron Flame though too is that I feel like, well, obviously it's very clear the Venom have an obsession with her. Like they keep trying to get her, and they keep saying him, whoever him is, they're king of some sort.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're told to get you and bring you to him, and you're the lightning wielder and all these things. And I'm like, so that's where it starts to showcase to me, like, okay, the Venom have other motives because there's something that they are trying to accomplish that they need her lightning for. Why?
Okay, I think I may have an answer to this.
Really?
From what I've seen theorized, as well as the blurb that has been released. I think Rebecca Yarros put it on her Instagram or wherever. But a lot of people have talked about how Violet's signet that she has right now with Terran, lightning wielding, is not actually lightning wielding. Her signet is pure power.
Oh, and interesting.
It's pure power manifested as lightning, because she talks about, the things that bring me the most comfort are something, thunderstorms and books. And everybody thinks, thunderstorms because her mom's, a storm wielder. That would make a lot of sense. So she has this pure power, and I think Felix confirms it in Iron Flame when she's practicing, saying, you are pure power incarnate, and you're just manifesting it as lightning.
Interesting.
Because that's what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
So in the blurb that Rebecca Yarros released, it picks up exactly where Xaden's talking to Jack about the cure and everything like
and
that.
Violet's listening.
And Violet's listening in, and Jack insinuates, like, the reason they want her, or this is the impression I got, is because she's pure power, and they just want to drain her. Because there's nothing more powerful than her. And people have argued perhaps pure power is the form of power that's in the ground that they're draining. And Violet's the first person to have pure power outside of stealing it from the ground.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be as simple as, she's really powerful and we just want to drain her. That feels like step 1 in like a 10-step equation.
Yes, it is feeling very large. And there was also something too, because I'm looking through my notes again, is that there was a quote, I don't know who says it, but they said something killed off the Venom 600 years ago during the Great War, and we're actively searching for that weapon. That's what Brennan says, the beginning of Iron Flame. So there's something that kills the Venom, and there's almost like this aspect in my head of, I'm like, what if Violet's power can be something that destroys them, can be the weapon essentially that destroys the Venom, but can also have the power to make them more powerful too. She kind of balances on this line of like good and evil almost, because her power can go both ways.
100% agree. 100% agree. Because I think there is a line, too, that says the only thing that can kill a Venom is pure power. And we obviously know that she can strike a Venom dead with lightning. So we also get this line shoved down our throat all the time that, like, there's balance in everything.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. It would make sense to me, back to the Violet Cure thing, that if she can kill the Venom, pure power can save
cure it. Yes.
the Venom, right?
Oh, easy. My brain's already right there.
Or
that makes so much sense.
Venom. How? Rebecca Yaros, that's up to you. But
yes,
that would make sense to me as well.
Yes, that would make 100% amount of sense. Yes, because there's got to be a balance. So it makes sense that Violet would be that balance. There also, again, and here's the thing too about book 3, for me at least, is it is shoved down our throats. Again, when things are shoved down our throats, we know is that everyone is always like, you are the most powerful, like, dragon, like, powerful rider, or you will be of your generation, or you will be, or you're going to be. And I'm like, so when are we gonna see her, like, because everyone's like, you're more powerful than Xaden, blah blah blah. And I'm like, so when are we gonna start seeing her actually be more powerful than Xaden? When are we actually going to see her be more powerful? And I could see that starting to happen in book 3.
Yeah, because arguably, right now, she's not. I mean, Xaden can practically do anything.
Yeah, he's very in control of his power.
And she's obviously not, because she can't even hit a target.
She has
with
no
her
control.
Power. And she has to use the conduit, like, 90% of the book.
Yes.
Through Iron Flame as well.
Oh, no, I agree. Okay, can we talk about what we think her signet's gonna be?
Oh my gosh, yes. I have 2 that I'm like, it has to be one or the other.
Okay, go.
And I think they're different than yours. Okay.
It's actually been intriguing.
The first one is the one that, prior to looking to any theories online, I was like, this is it. And that is Violet's second signet being Resurrection.
Yes. This was always my first thought, too.
Yeah, because like I said, or we mentioned before, Rebecca Yaros always puts one-liners in there and then circles back to them. And I vividly remember reading Fourth Wing.
Yes.
And her having the conversation with her professor or whatever about Brennan and Naolan and blah, blah. And he's like, Resurrection is not a signet. And I'm like,
to be Resurrection, you'd have to be a god.
Yeah.
Is kind of what he says.
And I'm like, all I'm hearing is it's not a signet yet.
No, exactly. And when I feel like when someone says in a book, this will never happen, or this can't happen, it's like well, it's going to then.
Oh, 100%. And with that, so with that thought, I was like, somebody's got to resurrect somebody during this book, obviously. And then, as I mentioned, we get, there's balance in all things. There's balance in all things. And if she's pure power that can destroy, it would make sense that a second signet to balance it out would be something that could save. Yeah. Right? Because she has this internal monologue all the time where she's like, why was I given such a violent signet?
She always wanted to save people. She always hoped that she would be a mender like Brennan and things like that. Yeah. And
then she gets pure power. So it would make sense that her second signet would be something on the flip side. Yeah. Right? And I feel like they also say, not LOL, I said I feel like they definitely do say this, that the signet is dependent on the writer and what the writer needs most. And I feel like all the time, like, arguably, I would say Violet just wants to survive. Like, all odds are bet against her throughout all of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame of being, you're so weak, your bones are so weak, you're not going to survive. Who's going to save Violet? Mira's going to save Violet. Xaden has to.
Yeah, it's never just her.
Yeah, so she's just like, to survive, and so to be able to resurrect, I feel like would follow that line of thinking as well.
Oh, for sure. My thing, so I always had the first thought of Resurrection too because of that one line in Fourth Wing. I was like, I feel like it was too stand out. It stood out too much for me not to think that. And then but then I also had the thought of like, oh, well, maybe she can communicate with Death.
I have seen that theory
because of Liam, because we get Liam in Iron Flame, where she has the moment, and also it would kind of make sense. And now that when we kind of made that connection of like Venom or Death, like it would kind of make sense if she's basically part quote unquote Death essentially because she's half Venom. So that would kind of make sense that she would have some sort of relationship with death or with resurrection of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
But then I changed my mind completely in my reread because there is a moment. Hold on. I'll find it.
And with that, I will say, I think Rebecca Yarros did come out and say that entire singing with Liam has nothing to do with Violet's second signet.
Yes.
Because I always thought
really? I didn't see that.
I always thought resurrection too. I thought, oh, she can see Liam. Like, maybe she didn't resurrect him entirely, but resurrected his image or something. And then I think she came out and said, that is not where you see her signet.
Yeah. She did say, though, that her signet is very obvious in Iron Flame.
Which, yes. You go first, and then I'll go second.
So, there is a line. So, where is it? Sorry. No, we're not far enough. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Anyways, it is when she realizes that Xaden has a second signet, and she's rambling, and she's like, well, what is it? And she's like trying to think through all these different qualities that Xaden has. And then she makes a comment, and she's like, what are you, a distance wielder?
Oh,
and
yes, 100%.
So she makes a comment about him being a distance wielder, and he's like, no, there's been 2 of those in the past 600 years, I think is what he says. And I was like, interesting.
That means one's coming up.
That was very specific. And then I really thought about it, and I was like, well, a main theme for Violet, especially in Iron Flame, is she wants to protect all of her friends. And she tries really hard throughout. I mean, we start off Iron Flame with her running. We always talk about how she's quick and agile, and that she's very fast. Yep. She starts running, so obviously, like, being able to move quickly has always been, like, as a theme within, like, Iron Flame of her trying to be able to accomplish. And half of it is because she's always trying to keep her friends safe. She wants to be able to protect the people that she loves. And a half of that reasoning is because she felt like she wasn't able to get there fast enough to save Liam. And she's never there she's not there fast enough to save the people that she cares about. That's why I feel like the frozen in time thing worked for her, but she doesn't have that anymore. So what would be the next thing that would be similar to that? And to me, that would be distance wielding. And then there is a point at the end of the book when she's going into the cave. She starts running into the cave because she realizes what needs to happen. And Eric is there, and he's like, whoa, you got here so fast.
Yeah, he's like, I've never seen you run that fast
He was
before.
like, that was crazy. And, like, he makes a comment about how fast she got there. And so it just made a lot of sense to me to be like, oh, well, that would kind of make sense. And it would also kind of make sense how she would then be able to use that signet to go to all of these different places in the next book to be able to try and gain allies, and also why she'd be able to go to from Orisha to Basgaeth quickly and things like that. I just felt like it would be really, really make a lot of sense.
And I agree in the sense that obviously we know Indarna could stop time.
Yeah.
That feels the most connected to me.
Yeah, it does.
From stopping time to actually being able to jump in time, essentially, from
it's
place
essentially
to place.
like winnowing is what I understood it to be.
Yeah, because I always thought with some of these signets, I'm like, why could Indarna stop time?
Yeah.
Like, is it just like a one-off random signet and it just didn't really matter? Or, because it feels like it should be connected.
Yes, it does.
To her full signet, right?
For sure. And so anyways, I think that's kind of the thought I'm going with. I'm more curious to know if we're going to actually find out what her second signet is in the third book. Because this is the thing that keeps going through my head as I'm making these theories, is I'm like, we still have 3 books.
Oh, I know.
We still have 3 whole books of plotting and world building and storytelling. And I'm like, and so that's where I always keep feeling like I'm being very short-sighted with a lot of these things, because I'm like, they need to be able to expand into 3 books. So how? Yeah. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things where I feel like maybe I'm right, but maybe I don't know if we're going to find out these things in Onyx Storm, in all honesty.
Which would be frustrating, but would make a lot of sense, because you don't want to jam-pack everything into the third book and then be like, what do we do for number 4?
Yeah. Like, what do we got now, you know?
Okay. My other thing that I think could be her second signet is her being a truth sayer, because
which would be interesting.
In Iron Flame, at the very last chapter, right, Xaden's point of view, the header says, The only thing more dangerous than an intrinsic is a truth sayer, and yet we let them live.
Yes.
Which, in my head, when I first read that, I was like, girl, how? Because a truth sayer, we see, I think her name's Nora, when they're doing the RSC. She's a truth sayer, and she's in the room, and I'm like, nobody really seems threatened by her. And from what I understand, they're a human lie detector. And I'm like, how threatening is that, especially comparatively to somebody who can actually read your thoughts?
Yeah.
But it would make sense with Violet being so powerful and everybody saying, you're going to be the greatest writer of your generation.
Yeah.
Just to, like, the one thing that can top an intrinsic would be her second signet.
Yes.
And then throughout Iron Flame, we always get her and Xaden's back and forth. Like, the one thing she needs is the truth. We even get in Onyx Storm in the end of the synopsis. It says the only thing, or the one thing that only Violet can figure out. The truth.
Yes.
Period. Which would make sense. And Xaden the entire time in Iron Flame is pleading for her. He's like, if you would just ask the right questions, then I would give you the answers.
Yeah.
Which would make sense if she's a truth sayer. Because maybe, similar to how Xaden is an intrinsic that reads intentions, maybe she's some variation. Maybe she asks a question straight up. Maybe you don't even have the ability to lie to her.
Yeah.
It's not that she...
Oh, that would be interesting.
...can read, like, oh, you're not telling the truth. But maybe if she asks the right question or phrases it the right way, you can't even lie to her. So he's pleading for her. And he would know because he's an intrinsic, right?
Yeah.
Or at least have an inkling. He's like, just ask the right questions, Violet. Are you kidding me? And then, to go even further... I think a truth sayer, bear with me. Like I said, it doesn't seem very threatening to me, so I'm like, what could be so threatening? Maybe a truth sayer has the ability to manipulate the truth, and maybe even go so far as to manipulate truth into reality.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Which would be interesting, because I mean, that is a huge aspect of this book series so far, is the fact that their history was manipulated into truth. False history was manipulated to become true fact to them. You know what I mean? And that's a huge aspect and issue of the first 2 books.
And that's what I was thinking too, because I tried to go back and look up and see how they did it. It's my understanding that the way they manipulated the history is just through the scribes.
Yeah.
They just had them publishing what they wanted them to do. And
there's
then
6 and 7 and 8 editions of these transcribed books, essentially.
Yeah. But I'm like, what if there was actually a truth sayer involved in that as well, that could actually manipulate reality and everybody's perception of reality?
Or what if it's just that she can read the books and recognize what's truth and what's not?
But I feel like
that's
not
big
sense.
enough, though.
It would make sense in, like, undermining everything. Yeah. That would be really important, but I don't know how threatening that would be, because even if she didn't have she knew what was wrong, it doesn't mean she has the right answers.
My thing is, though, is I don't feel like her second signet is going to be threatening. And that's, like, because, I mean, that's what we've talked about, is that she is basically like, why is my signet so violent? She hates that her signet is so threatening. And I feel like more that signet came from more of the aspect of the side of her that is fearless and doesn't give up and is very strong, even though she's, like, and her body is physically weak. And so I feel like we need something, like, again, like we've said, needed balance. So I feel like her second signet wouldn't be, like, a dangerous one per se, or one that's very threatening. It would be something that would be more helpful, or in a way that she would be able to protect her friends. Because that was also a consistent theme in Iron Flame 2, is she constantly feels like she's letting everyone down. She makes multiple comments where she's like, I'm letting everyone down, I'm failing them, I'm not keeping them safe, all these things. And so I feel like whatever her second signet is, it has to be something that balances those feelings out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I 100%. I feel like it's going to be kind of like a sleeper signet, if you will, similar to like a sleeper build. And I think that's why the quote where it says, the only thing more threatening than an intrinsic is a truth sayer would come into play.
Yeah, this is true. My other thing, though, is that there's another person that we don't know who their signet is, and it's Eric.
Oh.
Oh, what were you going to say?
No, I agree.
I also feel like there were a couple signets like the distant wielding and like the truth sayer and things like that that were mentioned in Iron Flame that I also feel like he could also have. I don't know which one, but I feel like he could also have something.
I've also seen a lot of people throw out precognition as a signet.
What is precognition?
Pretty much being able to see the future.
Oh,
essentially,
okay, yeah.
And
like a seer of some sort.
Yeah, explaining that the reason that Lilith was requesting the cure is because somebody with precognition saw that Xaden was gonna turn Venom, and it was like a premature action.
Yeah.
But I feel like that had a lot of ifs. Like, if
that's
this,
an if, for sure.
And I think a lot of people associated it specifically with Xaden's mom potentially having precognition.
True, we got Jack and Shiz about his mom.
Which I think Rebecca Yarros has confirmed that she will be making an appearance in the
she
series.
has to. I mean, okay.
Right?
And I wrote this down because I said, the things we know about Xaden's mom. She was in a marriage contract to Fen Ryerson.
Yes.
So she didn't love him. She basically was in a marriage contract, which makes me believe that she must have come from somewhere that was powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Because why would she be basically betrothed to a king unless she was a princess or ruler, a daughter of a ruler of some sort? Mm-hmm. Was it potentially the Isles? Who knows?
Yeah.
She left when Xaden was 10.
Yes.
She made him a blanket that's in his closet.
Yes.
He doesn't like talking about her. She's in no paintings and not spoken about. That's all we know.
I've seen people say that they think the reason that she left is because she has the precognition and she saw he was going to turn Venom and she left him going looking for a cure. And that's the reason he has the blanket, is like a don't forget about me, I'm coming back for you. Because her leaving because she doesn't love Xaden doesn't seem to fall in line with giving him the blanket as a gift. I did
actually think that. I was like, that's very a motherly thing to do for you to just leave your son.
Yeah, to turn and leave.
Yeah, it feels very odd.
But once again, no proof confirming
no
any
proof
of that
at all. And I also found, this is literally jumping back so far, but when we were talking about, because like we said in the blurb, it says that there is only Violet can find the truth. Mm-hmm. Whatever. There is a quote that Lilith says at the end of the book that she says, your father made sure you know everything you needed or where to find it. You're all that's left of him, you know. And so I felt like that quote specifically gives this idea of there is something she needs to find or needs to figure out, and she was given everything she needed or where to find it. And I feel like the or is going to be a huge play in Onyx Storm of she needs to find something that her dad has left her and she better find it. Because I feel like that's going to be a huge aspect of the truth.
Yeah, I am slightly worried that this book is going to be similar to the second book in a trilogy where you're having the FMC and the MMC completely separated on two different quests where they're off to find who knows what and then they reconvene later.
Which I wouldn't be surprised, because I also was very thrown by the blurb, because we obviously know that Xaden basically has to stay in Basgiath, because if he goes outside the wards, then he will become Venom.
Yeah.
But in the blurb, it says that she has to leave Arishian borders, which is Tien, like where they've been staying. That's where. So that means she's not with Xaden.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, so are they separated? Are we gonna get a Xaden POV?
Oh, you would have to. I didn't
you would
even
have
think
to
about
if they were
that,
split up.
We've only been getting the one-off chapter at the end of the book.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I did have that thought where I was like, that is very odd that I feel like we are going to see them get separated. And I don't know how the story this story of a romance keeps happening if we don't get both of their perspectives, if they're separated.
From that splurge, too. Blurb, splurge, whatever. It sounds like Xaden can't even touch her.
I don't think so.
Like, I got the impression that he was like, if you let that like ability to drain like even close to her, like she's dead, she's gone. And I got the impression that he was gonna go so far as to be like, I can't even touch you.
Well, I think it was that, because that's what I think. What I understood is basically what Jack is saying in the little post that she made. Was that basically saying that even though you're in the wards, you still have the call to drain. Like, you
Mhm.
still want to gather power. And maybe that's it, is that the fact that she has so much power is such a huge calling. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he is like, you have to stay away from me because I can't, like, withhold from trying to drain your power. You know, that, like, that constant itch is basically going to be with him the whole time. And she knows because she's overhearing their conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts about her second signet?
No.
Okay.
But we threw out resurrection, distance wielding, and truth sayer.
Yes, truth sayer.
So if it's not one of those, I'm gonna be very upset.
I'm gonna be very upset. Okay, there was another thing that I caught in Iron Flame that I wanted to, like, briefly touch on, is the character of Eric. Okay, very interesting. Obviously he's the brother of Halden, and they're the sons of the king. He obviously is very bitter the entire time he's there. Like, he's very angry with his father. Obviously, it's mentioned. Well, mentions that he hates his father.
Yeah, that's the only reason he breaks into the archives to steal the journals.
And, like, he knew about the venom. That's why he's there, and why he goes to Basgiath. I was interested to know what the meaning of Eric is. The definition of Eric is of Norse origin and means ever ruler or ever powerful, meaning someone who would be a just and wise leader. And then it's also talked about in Iron Flame where Xaden's like, I don't want to be king. He's like, yeah, this is my throne, and Tiandor is my, however you say that place. He's like, yes, this is my home. He's like, but I don't really want to be king. I don't think that this will happen in Onyx Storm, but I think that eventually, I feel like Eric will become the king of,
Basgiath.
Navarre.
Promiel.
Whatever. I can't get them all straight. Sorry, but wherever
the
they are,
one is,
wherever they are, I think a huge aspect of the story is going to be getting him on the throne and becoming the king. His name literally means becoming an ever ruler or ever powerful ruler.
I think would be great, because for some reason I don't see Violet and Xaden sitting on the throne together. That feels like that's not their arc.
Let me make this very clear. My theory is they're dead by the end of the book series. I'm sorry, but there's no way.
Because of the Jesinia thing?
Yes,
at the beginning
and
of
I know, because I have read so many of Rebecca Yarros' books too, I know that she has absolutely zero fear tearing our heartstrings apart. And I can foresee them dying together and that being their happy ending. And it's going to be like, oh, the bittersweet, they're dead, but they're together still, and yay.
Oh, yikers.
And everything they worked for is great. I don't see them living.
Oh.
But I could see, and I think it was interesting because Eric was very clear in the book. He was like, that's because someone was like, Imogen makes a point that a writer has never been a king. And Eric snaps and says that that's Holden's destiny to be a king, not his. And I was like,
I love how it's just a reverse psychology. It's like, say the opposite of what you're meaning.
Yeah.
Just really aggressively, and we'll just know to flip it around.
So I don't think that's going to happen in Onyx Storm at all. But I think that that'll eventually happen because, I mean, it has to come out eventually. Like, it has to the king being the villain needs to be a bigger role at some point. And I think that might. So once that starts to happen, then I think who's going to be king and the leader, who's it going to be? And it's going to be, Eric, sorry, you're going to have to suck it up. That's going to be you.
Oh, I'm so on board with that.
Yeah. I liked that theory. I thought that was a good one by me.
Okay, with that, and this is kind of my last somewhat theory, is just not necessarily predictions for Onyx Storm, but for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I do think Dane and Violet are gonna reestablish their friendship. I think he's on a good arc to not a romance arc with Violet by any means.
No.
And a lot of people are guessing he may start a romance with Kat, and I'm like, absolutely not. Not down for that either. I think he is gonna get back to her good graces. What I would like to see is Dane dying to save Xaden.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the perfect ending to his
arc.
That
would be good.
To be like, I know you love him, and so I'm dying for him, for you, Violet, so you guys can be together.
Because this is the question. Who's dying in Onyx Storm? Because it's gotten to this point where she's so not afraid to kill off characters. I've gotten to the point of, it's not are they going to live? It's no, who's dying in this book now? Do we think Dane's dying? Who do we think is dying in this one?
My first thought was either Brennan or Mira.
Fair.
But I do think I've seen the theory of Brennan the betrayer. I am totally on board of that. Of them thinking that Brennan...
he gives sus vibes.
He's sus, as well as, not that this necessarily proves anything, but he's bonded to an orange dragon. And the only people we know that are bonded to orange dragons are Varish, Jack Barlow, and Amber Mavis.
The people we hate.
Hate them all.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Villains,
I didn't catch that.
And they always talk about how orange dragons are so unpredictable and they can't be trusted with their opinion. And I don't think he's going to outright, like, I'm siding with the Venom. But I know there's been hints of, Naolin dying or turning Venom to save Brennan, and that potentially there's a romance there.
Yes.
So I think Naolin's going to be Venom, and Brennan's going to betray them to side with Naolin.
That would be interesting.
So kind of a betrayal, but also a betrayal for love, not like an outright.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I did say this where I was like, because then I was like, okay, here are like my wrap up thoughts. And I was like, for Onyx Storm, they're enemies. Melgren, the Venom, the King, and whoever Halden is. And I said, and I believe the councils. The council that they were, like, basically the adults of the story. That basically lead Arisha or Tien or whatever it's called. Because Rebecca has posted multiple times of one of her favorite lines from the book from Onyx Storm is "Let's be menaces."
Yes, I have seen that.
My immediate scene that I pictured in my head when I heard that line was Violet and her friends, the young people, basically leaving to rebel against the adults who keep telling them that they can't do something, or that they're dumb, or that they shouldn't do what they're doing. And I feel like Brennan, we did see him kind of play that role, but he came around and went to Basgiath, and I could see him playing that role again, but instead being like, no, you're dumb.
I 100% agree. It gives vibes of very Lord of the Flies or like the 100 where they let all the kids rule themselves and be like, let's be menaces.
Yes.
Let's be exactly what they are telling us we are.
Yeah.
And then twisting that and using that to our advantage.
Yes,
to get
100%.
ahead.
That's kind of how, at least that's like the scene I picture in my head, I guess, is kind of that aspect. So I would very much believe Brennan to be like a betrayer of some sort later on. That would be interesting.
But as for who will die, I kind of think it's Mira, but also I feel like you can't kill Lilith then Mira.
Yes.
So that leads me to believe that it's gotta be one of her friends. Well, it's not gonna be Rhiannon, I don't think. I think she's too big of a character. Oh no. I was gonna say maybe like Sawyer.
Well, Sawyer's basically already dead. He lost a leg, the poor guy.
Oh, that's true. I changed my mind. Riddick it is.
No. Not Riddick.
Didn't he get an arrow in his belly, though?
No. That was, oh, I found it. That was when they were having to climb up the mountain.
Yeah,
on that random
so
day.
that was a while ago.
He's alive now.
Okay.
Yeah, Brandon mended him. He's well. In Fourth Wing, in Chapter 2, when she meets Rhiannon...
Yeah.
Again, I'm seeing this from an author's perspective of, like, what would be a good foreshadowing moment.
Yes.
And Rhiannon... I'll just read it because it'll make more sense. In Chapter 2, when Rhiannon is about to cross the parapet, whatever you call it, she says, Rhiannon grips both sides of the opening in the turret, then looks over her shoulder to me. I'll wait for you on the other side, she shouts over the storm. The fear in her eyes mirrors my own. And then Violet says, I'll see you on the other side. And I said...
You mean the other side of life?
Yeah. I said, so, Rhiannon's gonna die at some point, and I think that there will be like, she will say those same lines.
Oh, that would be
And she'll sacrifice herself for Violet, is kind of what I think. But I don't know if that's gonna necessarily happen in Onyx Storm. Honestly, I really could see no one dying in Onyx Storm, except for maybe the King. Or, I think more of the death would be Xaden turning full Venom, which I really do think will happen. Because that's the only thing that I can think of that would continue the story forward for another 2 books.
Oh yeah, them thinking they have a cure trying to use it. It doesn't work.
He goes full venom.
Yes. And then having to
now
restart.
they're enemies.
Yes.
Which I have seen that theory. I don't want to like take full claim to that theory, but yeah. Then now they're fighting against each other, and then we would get more of his perspective in the 4th and 5th book because he would be Venom.
Sorry to bring up another theory of sorts. However, with the name Onyx Storm, I remember I was doing some theories when the name was released. And my main thing is I always operated under the assumption that Onyx Storm, Onyx was Xaden, Storm was Violet.
Yes.
And the question was, is an Onyx Storm created when they bring their powers together or when they clash? Pretty much, are they going to be enemies or are they going to be able to work together?
Yes.
But I've recently seen people say, this actually has nothing to do with Xaden at all. Onyx, 2 things. One is either Indarna, and that's the species of dragon she is.
Yes.
So Onyx is Indarna and Storm is Violet, and together they make an Onyx Storm.
Interesting.
Or I've heard people say that wyverns have an onyx stone in the center of them.
And that's what I caught.
And the Onyx Storm is going to be a bunch of wyverns coming to like either fight them or charge them.
Another word for Onyx Storm could be Wyvern Storm is what I had written, since the Onyx ruins were inside of them. The other one too, Onyx is mentioned multiple times throughout the book in Iron Flame, and the other time, Violet describes Xaden's shadows as onyx, like it shines like onyx or onyx shimmers or something. So I was like, Onyx Storm could also be Shadow Storm. So I do see the tie to Xaden, but there was also a line.
Doesn't she describe his eyes as onyx eyes with gold flecks?
Yes, that's the other time that they describe onyx. And then there was, but I always like overlooked the storm aspect because I was like, oh, it's Violet because she is the storm. But there was a line that Xaden says to Violet that says, "What we build together has to be strong enough to withstand a storm or a war. Easy isn't going to give that to us." And I think that that's kind of like that's going to be the underlying theme of Onyx Storm is, can they withstand the basically like shiz show of a storm that is coming? The war that they're in. Are they going to be able to survive? And my answer is not in book 3.
Yeah. Not for now. Maybe later.
Maybe later, but not now.
Maybe in book 4 and then dead in book 5.
And then they're dead. They sacrifice themselves.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know which one, honestly, I believe at this point, but everybody was making
There's a
really
lot
great
of play
points.
on words for the Onyx Storm title, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really feel like it's actually going to be that big of a deal.
No, I think it's going to be, you know how authors will put one line that has the words in it and be like, oh, this is the Onyx Storm, and then you'll be like, oh, I guess it's referring to this or this.
Exactly.
But
It's going to be like you said, Andarna and Violet bring their powers together to cure the venom, and they are, and they're bringing together, it's an Onyx Storm of power into the it's going to be something like one-lined thing, but I don't know. I honestly, though, I'm sure, I know she has the story plotted because she had to before she published the book. She said that in a couple interviews, but she has not given us a lot to know where the rest of the book series is going.
I believe, and I think she's talented enough to do this. Me, if I were in her shoes, I would not be. I think she has it 90% plotted out.
Same.
Like, what's going to happen. And then I think she's letting the other 10% kind of vary. I don't know if it's necessarily based off of, like, public opinion or, like, just how it ends up writing and she thinks this should happen instead. Because sometimes your characters do things on page you never planned for and you say, great, I guess that's what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even on her interviews, I feel like she dodges a lot of questions.
She does.
But I think it's because she doesn't have it 100% set in stone.
Which I would totally agree. I'm just more intrigued for this book because she has said in a couple posts that this is her favorite so far, Onyx Storm, and she's really nervous for the public to read it because she likes it so much, and she's really scared for the public to read it. But I'm very intrigued. The one thing that I will say, and especially after reading a lot of her books though too, I have no doubt in her ability to write because one, she's written a lot of books, even though this is fantasy, which she hasn't written a lot of. She is very good at writing. And the one aspect of her writing that I've always admired in her romance books and everything is she is so good at writing multiple plot lines. Like, there is always so much depth, and there's depth, and there is a story on top of the story on top of the story. And so I'm really intrigued to see more depth within the plotting. Because I feel like there's been so much world building in the past 2 books that I'm really excited. I really think that we'll start to see more depth in everything. And I'm, like you said, I'm excited to see more of the depth of the Venom and the history and maybe more of the villains and the aisles that we keep discussing. Like, I think that we'll start to get, we've been going horizontal for the past 2 books, I feel like. I feel like we'll start to be going more vertical down into more of the story. So, I guess we'll see.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm debating on whether I'm going to take work off the next day after Onyx Storm is released so I can just sit and listen to it in one day.
I'm so excited.
But we'll have to see.
Okay, do you have any other thoughts? I feel like I was going through, but I feel like that was kind of all of them.
Yeah, I think my main things were Violet being Venom, as well as
half
her
Venom.
second signet. Yes, born half Venom and her second signet are like the 2 things that I'm foaming at the mouth to figure out.
Yes.
Which I don't think we're going to get the answer to her being half Venom in this book.
Yes.
Maybe some inkling of it, but we're not going to get the full story because I think that's going to have to be the key for the actual cure that will probably not come until book 4 or 5.
Yeah, I have no belief in at all that Xaden will be cured by the end of this book.
Oh yeah, I don't think so
No.
either because I think it needs to be a problem that lasts a
A
while.
I could see him not being cured, go full Venom by the end of book 3. He's a part of the Venom in book 4, then gets cured, so he's with them again in book 5, knows their secrets, he figures out what they actually are trying to accomplish, so then the big final battle and war can happen
Yes.
in book 5.
Agreed. 100% agreed. And don't ask me what Indarna's role is in this book. Yes, she's special. Yes, she's the key, I'm sure. But I don't know.
She's the key. I am 100% certain about that. But I'm not quite sure what she does yet.
Yeah, I've seen people say the weapon that killed the Venom 600 years ago was Indarna's species of dragon, and that's why she waited 600 years, because there hasn't been.
That would be
Any
interesting.
I don't know. Yes, she's important. That's all I can conclude.
She's important. We like her a lot, and that's all we got for Andarna. There was one line in Fourth Wing or in Iron Flame that I didn't realize. Is it because you know how their signets are kind of more based off of the writer?
Yeah.
I didn't know that the dragons choose their tails by off of like necessity and what they want.
Yes.
Which I didn't know that. So
her
her being
being like a hook tail?
feather tail?
No, feather tail is just a way to say a baby.
Oh. Wait.
A feather tail isn't a type of tail. Feather tails are just baby dragons.
Oh.
Because they haven't chosen what tail they're going to have. They got feather tails.
Oh, so we don't know what her tail is.
I think they said it's fully developed, and I thought it was like a hook tail or something now.
I don't think we know what her tail is.
Let me do a quick Google search.
I'm gonna be honest, every single time that the tails were discussed, I got a little confused. Oh, also, another side note, but this is literally so random while you search that, is did you know that Fen Ryerson was actually not a writer?
Yeah, he's infantry.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Shocking information. I said, wow, this man cared a lot to be not a dragon rider. I really don't think that Andarna has a tail. Andarna...
Scorpion tail.
What?!
Yes, she turns into a scorpion tail in Iron Flame. I said hook tail. That wasn't right.
I said hook tail, really didn't. Scorpion tail. Wow.
But yes, it took me till my second reread to realize feather tail was not an actual tail. That it just meant it's a baby dragon.
But they were all so flabbergasted when we learned that she was a baby.
Yeah, because the whole thing is they just don't let baby dragons bond because they're not fully developed, and then they can have that fluid relationship with the signet to the point where the rider can steal the signet of the feather tail because they're not in control. And then they develop their tail from feathers into one of the tails.
Oh.
But I kid you not, that took me forever to figure out. I was like, what is a feather tail?
Got it. So confusing. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope you guys enjoy. We're very excited for Onyx Storm. We will be doing an episode immediately after reading, summarizing all of our thoughts and feelings. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming. I think the week after this episode. Nope.
No.
The week after.
The week after
2
that.
weeks from
because
now.
we film 2 episodes at a time every time we get together. So the next time we film, unfortunately, Onyx Storm will not be out.
It
so
did not align well.
We have to wait 1 more week. So I think it's like the first week of February.
Post February 6th.
February 6th, we will have a full in-depth Onyx Storm review.
Which I'm so ready for. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our social media, just at LA Reads Podcast, and we will see you all next week. Bye!